Hi and welcome to this week's video. In this video you see the manufacture of ribs, and I show you some details of some of the specialist ribs. Not all of them, because I've yet to sort out two of the specialist ribs for the upper wing. One I need fuel tanks for, and one I need to have the upper rear spar fabricated to carry out. They're not on the drawings. The drawings give you details of the standard rib, but it doesn't really tell you about the others. So if you build all your ribs the same, you could end up being caught out by having to chop out great chunks of geodetic and glue in other chunks of geodetic to get it to work out. But hey ho, let's see what I'm going to show you this week. Come on then. Hi and welcome to the channel. In these videos I show my build of a Fisher Youngster biplane kit, and it's not meant to be instructional, but it's meant for you to have a bit of entertainment seeing how I go about building this aircraft, and hopefully get a few hints and tips that might help you out to build your own aircraft. Let's face it, if I can do it, you can do it. Right, as you can see, just put the lower capping piece in. Both of them have been bent with my using boiling water, putting it into the form and letting it dry for effectively 24 hours. This one I've put in slightly forward, more forward than it needs to be, but it's the way I set up the jig was for the steaming was to allow for that. And then I lay in this one. I'll bring you around and give you a bit of a close-up of what I'm going to do at this end here. Now with the two pieces in position, holding this against the jig sides, I'm just using the razor saw straight down by the side of the upper capping piece. So I'm cutting the lower one. As soon as it slides like that, you know that you've actually cut that little piece off. Go through and we are ready. You can still see nice close fit there. You can move that back just a little piece like that. That makes it a good tight fit, and I've found that doing it like that means that this is very consistent from one rib to the other. When I cut off the excess here, they're spot on. Right, I'll mix up some resin and I'll go into a bit of time lapse for you to see what I get up to. Okay, so I've mixed up 4 grams of resin to 3.32 grams of hardener. Just make sure it's well and truly mixed. Small quantities are quite hard to get mixed and are far more critical. This is enough for me to do 1 rib and 1 half rib. I've got a couple of sticks and bits and pieces here which I've cut slightly short, and I start off by working my way from the back edge here. one rib done and dusted, ready to be put to one side to cure. Clamps are in, excess was wiped off the top faces. You saw that I used a little stick to go underneath to clean out the bit underneath. So I'll now use the rest of the resin which I've got there to do a front half rib. The time taken so far to create this rib has been just on 20 minutes, just under 20 minutes actually, from the time we started building it. So enough work time with the resin to do another 10 minutes or so on a half rib. 45-minute work time, but I don't like doing it more than 30 minutes. The resin starts getting a little bit sort of thick, and it starts to cure a little bit, so I don't want to go more than that. So 2 batches of resin for me means I can make up 2 full ribs and 2 half ribs. Okay, so let's see how we get on. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to draw a straight line across on my data marks, so I know where to cut the tail section off, and we'll get rid of our clamps. Like that. For the lower ribs, just get rid of my locating pins. Get rid of these little clips. So that's that done. Just easing these out. Sometimes it's a little bit tight. If it's a little bit tight, just using a chisel just upside down, I can ease things a little bit easier. There's one. Got the marks on there which are taking it off the jig. There's a little bit of glue squeeze out and things. I'll show you how I deal with that in a sec. So just with a razor saw, straightforward cuts. So it's very slightly proud. Just with a sanding block. Just get that so that's in line. Same with all the other bits, except of course this end here I can just do it left-handed so you can see. Just cut the tip off there. You can sort of see the end of the sort of ply just at the end. That's all waste now. And then, as you sort of see, there is a little bit of sort of resin which is sort of squeezed out on the other side. It hasn't made the contact area, a slight staining there, so it's just made it. So I can, what I tend to do there I've just got a small block, some 120 grit on it. I can just get rid of anything off the surface there, and then where it's got a little bit extra just go in, take off the bits where there's a bit of resin that's not where I want it to be, which is pretty much, if I can see it, it's not where I want it to be. Squeeze out there. All the excess resin taken off, a little bit of staining, but it doesn't make any difference. That's all, that one's now ready to go, and I'll go through all the others the same way. Okay, so a couple of differences on the root ribs. The root ribs, as you can sort of, you won't be able to tell, but this rear vertical section here is packed forward on the jig with a 1/16 of an inch piece of ply to just bring it forward that 1/16 of an inch to cope with the gusset plate on the root of the rear spar, and it's been dressed away to allow for the strap to go through and a bit of clearance around the strap. You don't want this rubbing on the strap, otherwise it's going to be, produce a chafe mark on a structural strength piece. So I've just made that wider than the strap by a section and deeper, so it's about 3/16 to allow for the 1/8 inch there. And then at the front here, it's been dressed back. So this is the lower root rib. The upper root rib similarly dressed out here for the tang to go through. Again, the back end here, this vertical has been moved forward a 1/16 of an inch, and again we've got the slot in it, but this section here is removed because we've got the bow going across there, and that reduces our requirement somewhat for there. So here's one of the other wacky ribs. This one is the 6th one out on the lower wing, and I put a piece of rib cap piece along the front edge here, because you take out 5/16 is what I've taken out from this vertical piece here, so it'd be rather fragile and chance of breaking. I mean, it only leaves about 1/16 of an inch there, so I'll put this cap piece in to give it just a little bit of reinforcement there, so it can't crush or anything else during the actual assembly. All the ribs at this moment in time haven't got the T-piece which goes across the back face here of this this piece here. I'll fit all those later on. Just going to block in this bit, varnished in here. It's had 3 coats of varnish. I then sanded the surface flat so there's no varnish on the surface. Actually, talking about making sure the surface is correct, and that's sanded with 80 grit wet and 80 grit sandpaper, and then it's been blown clean. Then it's been wiped with alcohol wipe, and wire brushed with a stainless steel fine wire brush to make sure the surface is absolutely clear of debris from the sanding process, at least to the best of my ability. But it brings up the question that I was asked a couple of videos back now, I think. Somebody asked me, can you bond directly on top of old T88, i.e. if you've if you've glued something together and you've got T88 on the surface, could you put glue, could you put the T88 directly on top of that? My answer to that question is, well, from my tests, T88 is one of the best epoxy resins I've come across for being able to bond to itself with an unprepared surface, but I wouldn't. From my normal aircraft test pieces, I've had which I did some experiments. There's a bit of a video going back some where I show you how I test all my structural bits. I'll make up a little test piece for this, for example, just to make sure that the resin is up to its strength. I had a couple of failures with T88 straight on top of raw T88. The recommendation is always to try and make the surface clear of previous cured resins, especially with epoxies, because they generally produce like an oily film, a sort of waxy film on the surface, which isn't good for bonding to. Despite T88 being good for any primary structure, I wouldn't. I'm a great believer in following the guidelines when it comes to construction. Anyway, carrying on with this, I sort of put on a little bit of excess amount of resin. I scrape off some. I just make sure that I've got a really good coating. The reason I put a little bit of excess on is I want to make sure that I've got resin all the areas I need it to be. Now, because this is a closed box and I didn't want to sort of trace out and then varnish and all the other bits and pieces that would be involved with that, the lid here, the top of the box, I have given a complete coat of resin. So that's got a full coat of resin on it to seal the whole thing up. Now, this is where a lot of people would go for the staple gun. And I must admit, I do use staples occasionally, but I don't like using staples on primary structure. I don't like using staples if I can get away without it anyway. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to put some tape across. Just let it walk its way in, it says. Some weights. I want that to go across there, across there. I'll put a couple of corner weights on. Then, as is my usual thing, I'll try to get rid of as much of the excess resin as I can. So that really is the only different area compared to the lower spar. That's a complete box with my modification there of the vertical. I've started laying out the upper rear spar, and I'll show you that in more detail in next week's video, no doubt. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the thumbs up. You can subscribe or even hit the little bell notification for future videos. Any comments would be appreciated, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Remember, go fly and feel the sky.